Good morning.
Good morning, Vietnam.
How are you today?
I'm fine. And
Gr-
you?
Great. I'm fine too. Let's see. I have something interesting to. Well, I think it's something interesting.
Mm.
Uh, but wait a second. Let me just make sure that I've got everything right. No, it's about our visitor
Ah,
from yesterday.
tell me.
I'll tell you, and I think you're gonna. I don't know. I think you're gonna find it quite interesting. Well, remember the video we were watching?
Yes.
Okay. What was the message in that video? The last one from Daryl.
Uh, the last one
Yeah, the video we worked
about
on.
the respect. The respect.
Mm-hmm. But
Yeah.
but also the lesson. Remember when he talked about the teaching lesson?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What what
About
what do you remember about the logic of
the
that
logic
lesson?
is that ignorance breeds fear, and fear breeds hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And we hate what we fear, so that's the logic.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And that's why all of this breeds to uh, violence and destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Um, and then in the end, when he showed the CNN report,
Yeah.
what kind of message do you think he was trying to pass on?
uh, well, I think uh, he tried to pass the message that we all have to respect the others,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and this respect um, is related to communication and the right, and you have to you don't have to agree with what the other person is saying, but you need to you should agree with the right that the other person
The right to express,
yeah,
the
the
right
right
to air their views, right?
there,
So
yes.
so this is very interesting, isn't it? It's not
Yeah.
about respecting the content of
Uh-huh.
what they're going to say, because you don't have to respect the content, the message. You don't have to
Uh-huh.
respect that, but you have to respect that person's right to say it.
Mm-hmm.
So for yesterday, I had a very interesting. I was going to text you later, but I said no. I think I'd rather tell her this in person. Yesterday, I was a victim of that. I was a victim of ignorance. Think about
Yeah.
this. Yes, it's the perfect example. Is
Mm-hmm.
the perfect example. We can totally kind of model that, into our experience here. Well, first of all, what is this? Well, this is our little comfort zone. We meet here every day. We know each other. We know what we are doing, right? We're
Right.
not trying to impress anybody. We're not trying. We're here, right? And we want to use this tool. We want to explore this medium, right? And get experience and play around with it because we can. It's available to us, right?
Right.
No big deal. It's our little comfort zone.
Yeah.
What happened yesterday? A foreign entity, which we were unaware of, entered our comfort zone
Uh-huh.
through the message that they sent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, by the way, I forgot to say good morning to people here in case we have another visitor. Okay. So the thing is, when you're ignorant, right? I had an insight yesterday. I really enjoyed this. I mean, I feel a little bit embarrassed about what happened, but at the same time, I feel great because I think that lessons like this are lessons to be learned. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to make the same mistake again, but I hope, I hope I've learned a lesson. So this is our little comfort zone, right? Okay,
Right.
what was one of the first things that Daryl said? A foreign entity enters your little comfort zone. What happens? You become fearful
Yes.
and accusatory.
Yes.
Well, let's see if that happened to me yesterday. Okay, did I become fearful? Yes. Deep down, yes. Fear of what? Fear of rejection, for example. We all fear that. Even if we say we don't care, deep
Yeah.
down, nobody wants to be rejected. We have to be honest about this, right? At least
Hmm.
I admit that.
Yeah.
Okay? I think what I can say is that I can deal with rejection. There are people that lock down, they get depressed and so on. I can
Yeah.
manage, right? But I don't like it. You know, if I have a choice between rejection and non rejection, I would go with non rejection. Anyway, so so when your little comfort zone is invaded, you become fearful and accusatory. That's what I did yesterday, didn't I? When I told you, oh, look, this person is saying this and that about us. So I
Yeah.
started accusing that
Yes.
person, right?
Right.
Okay. But the truth is, did I have all the facts? I mean, did I know who the person was? Did I know
No.
where the message was coming from?
No.
Worst of all, I didn't know. I didn't pay attention to time. Because you see, the thing is, I started streaming because every morning I have to set up the software, right? So I have
Uh-huh.
this application called OBS, which is a screencasting software that allows me to record the screen. And it also allows me to, um, what's the word? To stream. So before you enter the room, I had a few minutes to set the software. And while I was doing that, I didn't say anything. But I replied to a WhatsApp message which was sent to me by my second kid's mom. So she sent me a message in the morning in Portuguese.
Yeah.
And I replied. So this guy who sent messages was early in the connection. And then this person said, "What language are you speaking? Can you speak up, please?" Because there was no sound. You see, I
Oh.
was just typing a message in
Uh-huh.
Portuguese. Now, I don't know what part of the world this person is from, but of course, they did not recognize Portuguese. They just
Uh-huh.
realized it was a different language. So, what language? So, they were not trying to offend us, me. You were not even in the room. Okay, and then they said, I mean, this person said, so what language are you speaking? And then
Uh-huh.
after that, he said, "Can you speak up, please?" Because probably he thought that my audio was low and I had not paid attention to that. So there was no
Uh-huh.
sound. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, you came in, we started a class, and then after 20 minutes or so, I decided to just check the YouTube window to see if everything was working, if it was streaming. And then I thought,
Uh-huh.
oh my God, there are messages there. Somebody, entered our room. But they were terrible messages because they were insulting me. What language
Uh-huh.
are you speaking? So isn't that interesting? How we can connect with that lesson?
Uh-huh.
Ignorance. I was ignorant of the facts, right?
Mm-hmm.
I accidentally, I unintentionally, I twisted the facts,
Uh-huh.
and then what happens? You become accusatory, you become fearful.
Yeah.
And I started hating that person. And the
Yeah.
first thing I wanted to do was to go into my YouTube settings, and I started looking for a place where I could shut up, shut up
Uh-huh.
the commentaries, or I could like lock that person and ban
Uh-huh.
that person from entering the room, doing
Mhm.
that kind of thing. But think about, look, what Daryl is saying is this: give that person a platform to air their views. Then you politely and intelligently
Mhm.
you challenge those views, and there's a good
Mhm.
chance they're going to reciprocate, right? I
Yeah.
thought it was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant. Anyway,
But in I think our temper uh, can uh,
yeah, we can get very
really
emotional.
yes,
Hmm.
and it's different from uh, be fearful,
Hmm.
or be ignorant
Yeah.
because of the temper. And
I,
now I remember the our doctor,
yeah.
Benny.
Ben
I remember.
Carson,
Yeah.
yes, because he was praying to God, right, to help him control
Yeah.
his temper. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
no, I agree with that as well. I completely agree. We have that element in play as well. We should take that into consideration. Uh, but I think it's an excellent exercise in I don't know. I think we have to do that. Um, for instance, another thing that I like to think we do is this: it's our nature to get defensive. So you
Yes.
say something to me, and I immediately go like this: "Wait a minute," you know. I
Uh-huh.
become defensive, and a form of defense is attack. So you say something, and I immediately attack you back. But
Yeah.
sometimes, because of ignorance, I fail to see that you're not actually threatening me. Remember what Daryl said, that reaching into the bag was not a threat.
Uh-huh.
But
Yes.
the security guard, every time he did that, he reached for his gun. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I think it was interesting. Okay. So today we're going to do something completely different.
Okay.
Okay.
You attack and I escape.
Wait a second. Let me just see if I found the right one. I think, yeah, because there's one here with subtitles in Russian, and I don't want to use that one. Okay, here we go.
Why not? Maybe that guy
So,
is a
who is your
Russian man.
favorite?
Okay, well, yes, it could be. Why not? Okay, right. So, I'm struggling with something here. I have to make a decision. Maybe you can help me out. Okay, it's not that I want to make you cry, okay? You can cry if you want.
Oh
You,
my God.
you don't have to
Okay.
cry. I
But
mean,
I'm so happy today.
yeah,
Ah,
but trust me, it's a beautiful message. But
okay.
I want to show you something. It's a 7-minute video, okay? And the thing is, we can break it up immediately into sections and start talking about it, or we can watch the whole thing. I personally think because the message is kind of deep, and it's a beautiful message, it's more fun to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because if we break it up, we lose that thing that
Mhm.
the whole video is trying to pass on to us. What do you think? Should we go ahead and watch the whole thing first and then we go back and break it up? I
Yes.
think it's a better approach,
Yeah.
personally. Do you agree
Yes.
with that?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so we're gonna go with that. Okay, so I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna play,
Mhm.
and since we have 5 to 7 minutes, I'm just gonna make myself a cup of tea, and then we'll talk about it. Okay?
Okay.
So here we go. So I'm gonna play it, and you just give me the thumbs up if you think the audio and everything is okay. Then I'm just gonna let it play, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Oh, sorry, forgot to click.
So, who is your favorite?
You are definitely the favorite. In fact, I've gone off the other three.
Creating a brighter future starts with a conversation. Moments of connection between generations. Experiences shared, lessons learned. This is Talk to Me.
We had very different upbringings. Your mother died when you were 14. You started U2 when you were 16. Were the band like a first family to you?
I have been on the road since my mother passed away, probably since I was 14. I was living alone with two men, three aggressive Irish men, living in a small house in the north side of Dublin. It wasn't very harmonious, and I'm sure I was at the root of most of the problems. The house was just that. It was no longer a home for me. And I guess you two became that surrogate family. I'll be honest with you, I've only really understood the feeling of home when you entered my life. And even then, it's taken some time for me to get back home.
Was it a big shock to have kids, especially when you're away, traveling with a big rock band in the 80s?
I wasn't the kind of person who'd be ready for family and settling down, but you probably saved my life. I remember you being born. I remember in detail. I was in the recording studio. Your mother came to pick me up. She had packed me a small little flask of whiskey, some novel I was reading, some newspapers. She was the together one. I was recording. So up to the last minute, I was probably in denial. Men experience great fear during the childbirth of their kids because there's nothing they can do. Normally if somebody you love is screaming or, upset, you just smack the person who's making it happen. You can't do that. So I had a very strange Irish deal with this, and I recorded your heartbeat. So I had this little portable tape recorder, and I recorded your heartbeat. And I was going to make a song up using your heartbeat as a rhythm. And I noticed the heartbeat getting slower. So I called the nurse and I said, look, the heartbeat's getting slower here. And they were like, yeah, no, don't worry. And I said, no, really, tempo. I understand tempo. And eventually I called the doctor. And the doctor went, ah. And so you were rushed into existence. You were so small, you were tiny. They suggested that you should be near my heart or your mother's heart. You were so vulnerable. You were 5 pounds. So you slept on my chest for 2 weeks. It's the most terrifying thing in the world to have this little thing right there. You were born on my birthday. Greatest gift I could ever get.
Cosmic twins.
Cosmic twins. But I think there's something, we were born for each other.
Still can't believe you made Mom drive herself to the hospital while she was in labor.
I did not make your mother. She wouldn't let me drive. She just wouldn't trust me driving.
You grow and evolve into this role that you've played for me in my life, and what have you learned through that experience?
They say being in a band is like a extended childhood. I don't really agree with that, because actually I think to have the friction of equals is quite mature. That said, all the sort of gangland, youthful silliness stays with you. So I'm not sure I was the most evolved man. I'm still working on that. And your mother's was incredible immediately. And I just kind of followed her around and did what she said. My father, when we announced that your mother was pregnant with you, he just laughed. He laughed and he just looked at me and he just went, revenge. Truth of it is you weren't revenge. And you and your sister Eve, you were the most incredible kids. I feel I have learned a lot from you, actually.
What would you say is your greatest achievement?
I think if celebrity is ridiculous, it's ridiculous because it upends God's values. So somebody like me, or a movie star or sports star, we're overpaid, overregarded, and a nurse or a fireman are just supposed to be normal. But actually, that's the wrong way around, because they're actual heroes and we're not. You know, Bjork is a friend and an inspiration, and she always says, you know, a musician in Iceland is like plumber. He's like carpenter. And we shouldn't see ourselves as something else. But if celebrity has anything to offer, it's that you can use your celebrity to shine a light on issues and put a spotlight on people whose voices are not heard. I think we do have to make a deal with ourselves, with our family, with God, about this inequality. So I just live a life that I think is the right life for our family. We try and deal privately with some redistribution of that wealth. But the most important thing that I can do is try to fight the causes of poverty. And they're structural, they're not simple. And that's why I'm in the One campaign. I think the thing that offends me the most is the waste of human potential. If I had a definition of love, it was something to do with realizing the potential of the people around you. I was a chess player when I was a teenager, and I see some down and out sleeping on a park bench, and I think, he could be a champion chess player or an athlete who's smoking crack. That's what it all comes down to for me, is that we can realize each other's potential. You know, you look at a disease like malaria and you think of all the Mozarts, all the Steve Jobs, all the Bill and Melinda Gateses, all the brilliant people. We don't know how many of them we've lost through a tiny vaccination or a bed net. Not having that. That's probably at the heart of who I am.
Sorry. I was supposed to come back before it finished.
No problem.
So, how was it?
Good, interesting.
I wasn't here. Did you cry? No.
No,
No.
no.
So it wasn't a crying video. I mean, not for
Yeah,
you.
no,
Okay.
no, no.
Before we go back and start breaking it up, any particular part of the film, of the interview, touched you, or did you find it particularly interesting? When you think about everything that you heard Bono and his daughter saying, is there anything that kind of attracted your attention more than others? Something you found particularly interesting?
Um, I don't know if it is interesting, but the part that he said, she born uh, very tiny and with only, I don't know, 5 pounds. I don't remember, but I think it's a very, very little baby.
It's a small baby,
And,
yeah. Five
yeah, and
pounds is something like a little bit below 2.5 kilos.
yeah,
So it's a 2 kilos, 2 kilos and 300 grams or something like that.
so I think it uh,
Because you know, in Brazil,
almost
in Brazil, not only in Brazil but all over the world, some babies are born weighing something like 10 pounds. You know,
10 pounds.
yeah,
Yeah,
some
yeah,
babies are.
Vinicius.
Venice,
Yeah, Vinicius. Yes,
you have one at home.
yes.
Okay, so
The
some
nurse,
baby
when he born,
when he
the
was
nurse
born.
said, when he was born, the nurse said, "Whoa, what a bezerrão!"
Oh, we can say this. Okay, the word for that is calf.
Calf. Yeah, what a big calf.
All right. Okay. So anyway, the fact that she was born very tiny.
He was born very tiny, and the doctor said to him that he should put her in his chest, and he said uh, that for 2 weeks she slept in his chest,
Hmm.
and he pointed out that it was strange because she was so tiny, and
Hmm.
uh, but this uh, that had that made a transformation, the
Hmm.
start of a transformation
Hmm.
in
In his life.
him, in his
Yeah,
life. Yeah,
it's something that really changed him. It changed his
yeah,
life completely.
yeah.
Okay.
And well, I think this part,
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
Mm-hmm. Okay.
uh,
I have some I have some very specific feelings about the whole thing, but I don't want to let my opinion interfere with yours. So we're gonna watch it again, and I'm gonna break it up, and we're gonna do the verbatim thing. Okay.
okay.
So let's go.
So, who is your favorite?
You are definitely the favorite. In fact, I've gone off the other three.
Creating a brighter future starts with a conversation. Moments of connection between generations. Experiences shared, lessons learned. This is Talk to Me.
Okay, let's break it up here. Um, so this is the introduction. Yeah, the name of
Yeah.
this. I'm not sure if Bono's daughter, if she has some kind of online show, But anyway,
Uh,
it's called Talk to Me.
mhm.
Um, what can you tell me about this introduction?
Um, well, the first thing she said was a question,
And what was the question?
and she asked him uh, who was his favorite.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And
Uh,
and how did he reply to that question?
uh,
How did he answer?
he said she was the favorite,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't understand. She said the favorite of three.
Well, actually, it wasn't. It wasn't she who said that. You're getting to that conclusion because of what Bono said, because it went like this.
Uh,
She asked him, okay, who's your favorite? And then he replied by saying, oh, you are my favorite. You're definitely my favorite. In fact, I've gone off the other three. So he said, I have gone off, meaning, I mean, we can only infer here that he's saying, well, I disconnected and I don't care about the other three now, which is, I mean, which is something that is telling us that he's got four kids.
yeah.
Okay. So
Uh-huh.
based on the interpretation, he's got four kids. You're definitely my favorite. In fact, I've gone off the other three. So
Okay.
my other three children. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And then after that, what do you remember?
Um, and
She was
then,
holding a tablet and looking at some pictures. Did you notice that? Because the image is
yes.
kind of it was edited to look old, right?
Uh-huh. Yes. And I don't remember.
No, she basically was looking at some pictures and saying, okay, memories, past, lessons learned, experiences shared. This is talk to me. Because actually she was going to go over those things, but in this case with her daddy. Because probably she does that with other famous people. You know, she probably interviews other people too. But this time was with her with her daddy. And the name of the show is Talk to Me. Okay?
Talk to me.
Right. So now that we know that, let's just jump in. One second, please.
So who is
Experiences shared, lessons learned. This is Talk to Me.
Yeah, she said, experience shared, lessons learned. This is Talk to Me. Okay. So let's pick up from here.
Talk to Me.
we had very different upbringings. Your mother died when you were 14. You started U2 when you were 16. Were the band like a first family to you?
I have been on the road since my mother passed away, probably since I was 14. I was living alone with two men, three aggressive Irish men, living in a small house in the north side of Dublin. It wasn't very harmonious, and I'm sure I was at the root of most of the problems. The house was just that. It was no longer a home for me. And I get
Okay. It's a lot of information, so we're going to have to break it up into smaller pieces. Okay. Do you remember how she started? I mean, what was the question she asked?
Yeah. First, she made it like an appointment, no, but a commentary that
I was just going
they,
to say that it sounded like a comparison. She was
yeah,
comparing the way she grew up, the way she was brought up, to the way he was brought up.
brought, that's the word.
Okay.
That's
So since we're okay, so since this is an English class, let's talk a little bit about vocabulary. Okay. Now, bring up is the phrasal verb. Okay, Veronica, bring up is the phrasal verb. Okay, so we use this phrasal verb when we talk about the process of educating a child, right? So, for example, when we talk about this, I have two kids, right? So I have had some experience in this subject, bringing up a child, because that's what parents do. For example, when you're a kid, if your parents die in an accident, for example, which is something that sometimes happens to some kids, both parents die in an accident, and then they're brought up by their grandparents, for example. So their grandparents bring them up. Okay, in other words, it takes them from childhood to adulthood. We call this the bringing up process. Okay, But what's interesting in English is that it's very common for this exists in the English language. You get a phrasal verb and you transform into a noun by repositioning the parts, right? And using the ing form. What I mean is this: upbringing, which is the terminology that she used. She said, well, we had very different upbringings. And then she turned to him. Okay? So what do you remember about Bono's family history, if you will?
Yeah. His mom died when he was 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he started at YouTube when he was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And the YouTube became his family.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Very good.
And he said something about the house and be um, be be far from house was not normal for him, I think.
Mm.
Something like this.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You see, I like to hear you saying these things because that's the interpretation, which means
Uh-huh.
you received the message, perhaps with different words, but you got the meaning. You got the meaning, right?
Okay.
Okay. So that's why we're going to listen to it one more time before we advance. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. No, what I mean is this. So we have some milestones in his life. At the age of 14, his mom passed away. She died.
Mhm.
And yes, you're right. There was that question about the band. So yes, the band was a family to him. So the other things that he said was this. Well, first of all, he feels, right, that he's been on the road since he was 14. He has been on the road. Now, that's the kind of language that musicians use because you see, once they form a band, they start traveling, because of concerts. They play, right, in different parts of the country, in different parts of the world. So normally when they start doing that, they say, well, let's get on the road. Bands do that. They get on the road. And that's how they become famous and big and so on. So Bono said, because he's still an active member of the band is still playing all over the world. So that's why he used present perfect. He said, well, I've been on the road since I was 14 years old. Now, his mother passed away when he was 14. And then he described his household. In other words, the conditions in which he lived. He said that there were 3 very aggressive Irishmen. So he was talking about his father and his older brother, because, there were just the 3 of them. Two sons and a daddy. But all of them, very aggressive Irishmen. And he admitted to his daughter that he feels that probably he was the root of most problems, because he was probably, a difficult teenager. He's acknowledging that, right? And yes, you two became his family. Okay?
Okay.
Understood everything I said?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so let's listen to that thing one more time before we advance.
Talk to me.
We had very different upbringings. Your mother died when you were 14. You started U2 when you were 16. Were the band like a first family to you?
I have been on the road since my mother passed away, probably since I was 14. I was living alone with 2 men, 3 aggressive Irishmen, living in a small house in the north side of Dublin. It wasn't very harmonious, and I'm sure I was the root of most of the problems. The house was just that. It was no longer a home for me. And I guess you two became that surrogate family. I'll be honest.
Yeah. He said his house was not good for him
Was no
and
longer a home.
no longer a home.
You
Yes.
see, I love this thing about some words in English, because you see, a house is a house. It's a place, you know, walls and the ceiling. That's a house. A home is
Mhm.
something different.
Yeah.
So he said, the house had become just a house,
Hmm.
and you too had
And you,
become what?
his home, his family.
But he used
Yeah.
another word. Let's see if you remember this one. This one here, surrogate. Do you know what that means? Surrogate.
Uh, I should, I should know because I remember
Uh,
um,
well,
we this
yeah, I
some.
don't. To be honest with you, I don't remember the context in which we might have discussed this, but I have a feeling that somewhere we've seen this word in one of the videos and so on. Well, let me explain to you by referring to something that became I don't know, kind of polemic too in the 1980s, I think, when the first case appeared of a surrogate mother. What is a surrogate mother? It's like this. Let's suppose you're my sister, get married. My wife can't have children, but we desperately want to have children. So we go to a fertilization clinic and we get her egg, my sperm, put it in a petri dish, we cook them, and we make a baby. And we put that baby inside of you. You become the surrogate mother of our children. So you're a surrogate mother. In other words, we rent your belly.
Mm-hmm.
We rent your belly. That's the term we use in Portuguese. That's a surrogate mother, right? Okay, so Bono used this term to refer to this family because it was not his biological family. So it was like a family he was not renting, but like renting. So you two became his surrogate family.
Now I remember we discussed this word in I don't know if I think it was a news about uh, the coronavirus and uh, people that was in some city in Europe. Don't you remember? And
You see, I'm trying to remember. I'm picking up every detail that you're giving me, but not yet.
yeah,
Alzheimer's.
and the news was about the surrogate mothers that uh, couldn't back to home because of the virus, and they were uh, like in a prison, but they were at the hospital, you know.
My God,
Well,
I drew a blank. Honestly, I'm sorry. I drew a blank. I can't remember. Anyway, so
no
let's
problem.
advance. Let's advance a little bit more. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go with
I
40.
remember the image, you know,
You
because
do,
I
you
have
do.
a very
It,
good
it it's
memory.
it's
Yeah.
interesting the way our brain works, isn't it? Sometimes I remember things and people go, "How can you remember that?" And I just do. And sometimes I remember I forget some very basic things. Anyway, let's go.
Being in a small house in the north side of Dublin, it wasn't very harmonious, and I'm sure I was the root of most of the problems. The house was just that. It was no longer a home for me. And I guess you two became that surrogate family. I'll be honest with you, I've only really understood the feeling of home when you entered my life. And even then, it's taken some time for me to get back home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, to
Okay.
be honest with you, so what did he say when he said he was going to be honest with her?
Uh, well, he said the YouTube became
His
the surrogate uh,
family.
family. Yes.
Right.
And then he said that, to be honest, he only uh,
Understood.
understood
Uh huh.
what a home was when she was born.
Yes.
She
When she
was,
entered his life, right? When
yeah,
she was born.
yeah.
But then he said something interesting, right? Because he said, well, even then, it took me some time to get back home.
Uh-huh.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think what he's trying to say is that, okay, now I have a little baby, I have a daughter, I have a
Mhm.
wife, so I have a home. So he understood that. So she helped him understand. But even after realizing that, it took him some time to come back home, which means that probably there was a period of transition
Mhm.
between,
Mhm.
leaving the band, because the band was his
Mhm.
family, it was his surrogate family, and coming back home, because now he was coming back home, really.
Yeah, because sometimes it takes time to things down on him.
Oh my God. I'm so glad that I'm recording this. Oh my God. Congratulations. You just crowned this moment, you know? You really,
Ah,
you really did. But this is brilliant. This is brilliant. I was talking to a student of mine yesterday at night, and it was really interesting because he learned with me that to say, I've got something like I've got a car, or I've got a
mhm,
new mobile phone means the same thing as I have. And he learned that with me something like 3 years ago. And
uh-huh.
it's something he has never forgotten. So last night we were talking and we were watching a film, and he wanted to describe something, and he wanted to describe something someone has got. And he used it so naturally. And I asked him, man, how can you remember that? And he said, yes, Alfredo, I know. I learned that with you. But it's one of those things, because if you learn and then if you start using them, in other words, in a very meaningful way, you never forget.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So it dawned on him. All right,
Yeah.
so let's advance. Okay, and so here we go. 45, 59. There we go.
That surrogate family. I'll be honest with you, I've only really understood the feeling of home when you entered my life. And even then, it's taken some time for me to get back home.
Was it a big shock to have kids, especially when you're away, traveling with a big rock band in the 80s?
I wasn't the kind of person who'd be ready for family and settling down, but you probably saved my life. I remember you being born. I remember in detail. I was in the recording studio. Your mother came to pick me up. She had packed me a small little flask of whiskey, some novel I was reading, some newspapers. She was the together one. I was recording. So up to the last minute, I was probably in denial. Men experience great fear during the childbirth of their kids because there's nothing they can do.
Okay, so
So,
what's the question? Okay, what did she ask him?
oh my God. Uh,
He
what
was he was
she
traveling.
said.
At that time, he was traveling the world with a rock band, a big rock band,
Yeah.
right? So she
Yeah.
wanted to know if it was a shock to him.
Mm-hmm. A
Yeah,
shock.
to have
Uh,
kids.
I think, yes, to have kids when
Hmm.
he was in the way. She said something.
Yeah, when he was away, you know,
Away.
he was
Yes.
away because he was not at home. He was
Uh-huh.
away, with a rock band traveling the
Hmm.
world and so on.
Yeah. Uh, and then he said uh, he he was he wasn't um, ready for a family
Mm,
and to settle down.
beautiful, verbatim. Yeah,
Yeah.
ready for a family and settle down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Uh, but he said she did that with him.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then um he said what happened when she was born
Mm-hmm.
uh, in the day of her birth,
Mm-hmm.
because he was recording,
Mm-hmm.
and her mother uh, went to pick him at the studio,
Yeah.
and made a, a bag with whiskey and a newspaper,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know.
And
uh,
and a book, a novel that he was reading.
yeah.
So basically, because you see what makes this funny is that when
It's
a
the
woman,
opposite.
yes, when a woman is pregnant,
Yeah.
and just before they go to the hospital, she has a little bag. They
Yeah.
pack a little bag with everything they're gonna need, and
Hmm.
especially for the baby, the newborn. So they
Hmm.
pack their clothes, and something for her. So but this time she packed something for him.
Yes.
Like she said that, his wife had packed a flask of whiskey, a
Hmm.
newspaper, and a novel that he was reading.
Yeah.
She had put
And
everything together.
yes. And then he pointed out um, that he felt um, fearful because uh, in that moment, men couldn't help too much. Men, uh, um, yeah, men can't do
Anything.
anything. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh my God, you remembered a lot. Okay, so just let me help you out with a few keywords. So she wanted to know if it was a shock to him. When she said
Mhm.
that, she was referring not to her birth, the day she was born. No, she was referring probably to the moment when he learned he was going to be a father. Probably the
Mhm.
moment when his wife or her mother told him, "Look, I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby." Right? So that
Uh-huh.
was the first thing. So if it was a shock to him because he was away, you know, with a big
Mhm.
rock band, and then he learned he was going to be a father, right? Now
Mhm.
I have an interpretation question for you because I think you're good at this kind of thing. He said this: I was not the kind of person who would be ready for a family or to settle down.
Mhm.
What does that mean? I was not the kind of man that would be ready to settle down or to have a family.
Uh,
What do you think that means?
uh, well, he's a band guy, a celebrity.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
uh, well, he was, or he's always on the road
Uh huh.
with uh, shows, and
Uh-huh.
it's difficult to.
Okay. Let me rephrase my question now from a language structure point of view.
Mhm.
He uh, he said something, right? But he could have said uh, uh, something similar using a similar structure. For example, he said, "I was not the kind of person who would be ready. I was not the kind of person who would be ready to settle down to start a family."
Mhm.
He could have said, "I was not the kind of guy who was ready to start a family and to settle down." What's the difference when you say I was not ready and I was not the kind of guy who would be ready? What do you think is the difference in terms of interpretation?
Um, well, when he said he would, I think it's because uh, uh, he became a kind of that guy.
It's funny because what you said earlier, in fact, already answers that question. Okay? Oh, imagine I'm Bono, okay? And I'm married, but I don't have kids, right? And I'm always traveling the world. I don't have like a fixed home. I have a place in Ireland, right? But I spend most of my time on the road.
Mhm.
And and imagine you're a reporter, and you ask me, "Hey Bono, when do you think you're gonna be ready to start a family, to have kids, and to settle
Mhm.
down?" Go ahead, ask me that question.
Uh, well, when do you think you're gonna be ready to start a family or settle down?
Now I'm gonna give you two answers, okay, to help you
Okay.
understand why he said that way. One
Mhm.
way of answering this is this. Well, I don't know. Pretty soon, maybe next year I'll be ready because after this concert, my wife and I we've been talking about kids, so I think I am ready. But maybe next year I'll be really ready. Or
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't think I'll ever be ready for this. I don't
Mhm.
think because of my lifestyle. I'm a rock star. I'm always traveling around the world, so I don't know. I don't think I'll
Mhm.
ever be ready. Does that make sense? Because you see,
Yes.
that's the message he was trying to communicate when he said, "You see, I wasn't the kind of guy who would be ready. He would never
Mhm.
be ready."
Mhm.
And that's why he thanked her. She saved him.
Uh-huh.
She brought him home.
Okay.
He needed that kind of push. You see,
Mhm.
because he was not that kind of guy. Left to his own devices, he would never be ready. So he had to be pushed into
Uh-huh.
parenthood.
Uh-huh.
you know
Okay. Uh-huh.
does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? And it's interesting
Mhm.
to make this kind of interpretation because that's what he was trying to say, that he was that kind of guy. He wasn't
Mhm.
ready and he didn't think he was going to be ready, so
Mhm.
he needed to be pushed.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's just repeat that one more time. Oops.
Okay.
I'll be
Ah,
honest with you, I've only
I'm sorry. We forgot to say something important because you started mentioning it earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt you, and then I
Mhm.
forgot. You said that men are not prepared for this. Remember when
Yeah.
you were talking about men?
Mhm.
He said something very interesting, and I know that because I experienced that. I don't know if you have ever talked to your other brother about this.
Mhm.
Men experience childbirth in a very peculiar way. And it's
Mhm.
interesting because Bono said, I was probably in denial until the end.
Mhm.
What's your interpretation of that? I was probably in denial. What does that
Uh,
mean?
it means what it means.
Which is?
Well, um, he couldn't realize.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't realize until he he picked her in his hands. I don't know.
Yes. Okay. Or we can say that it only dawned on him that he was a
Yeah.
father when he finally had her in his arms.
Yes.
That's what we men do. It's almost
Uh-huh.
like we're saying, "No, it's okay. No, I'm not a father. I mean, she's pregnant, but she's pregnant. I'm not a father." You see, for men it's like this. It's almost like it's it's a unreal thing. The woman is there with that huge belly. She's carrying your baby.
Mhm.
But somehow we manage to reject the idea. And
Yeah.
then we're transformed when the baby is born. Okay?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
he said that. He was in denial. Okay, wait a second. Oh, I did it again. Forgive me. Sorry. It's the number thing. I'm sorry. 1 second. Okay, here we go. Now it's okay.
I'll be honest with you, I've only really understood the feeling of home when you entered my life. And even then, it's taken some time for me to get back home.
Was it a big shock to have kids, especially when you're away, traveling with a big rock band in the 80s?
I wasn't the kind of person who'd be ready for family and settling down, but you probably saved my life. I remember you being born. I remember in detail. I was in the recording studio. Your mother came to pick me up. She had packed me a small little flask of whiskey, some novel I was reading, some newspapers. She was the together one. I was recording. So up to the last minute, I was probably in denial. Men experience great fear during the childbirth of their kids because there's nothing they can do. Normally if somebody you love is screaming or, upset, you just smack the person who's making it happen. You can't do that. So I had a very strange Irish deal with this, and I recorded your heartbeat. So I had this little portable tape recorder, and I recorded your heartbeat. And I was going to make a song up using your heartbeat as a rhythm. And I noticed the heartbeat getting slower. So I called the nurse and I said, look, the heartbeat's getting slower here. And they were like, yeah, no, don't worry. And I said, no, really, tempo. I understand tempo. And eventually I called the doctor. And the doctor went, ah. And so you were rushed into existence. You were so small, you were tiny. They suggested that you should be near my heart or your mother's heart. You were so vulnerable. You were 5 pounds. So you slept on my chest for 2 weeks. It's the most terrifying thing in the world to have this little thing right there. You were born on my birthday. Greatest gift I could ever
Cosmic
get.
twins.
Cosmic twins. But I think that's the song.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a great part.
That's the best part for me.
Yes, but I have to go today.
I'm sorry. It's okay. I was going to say that. But it's okay. Look, we can save this for tomorrow. We
Yeah.
go over this part because, like you
Uh-huh.
said, it's a great part. Let's not rush into it. Let's save it for next because it's beautiful. We have to talk about it tomorrow. Okay?
Yeah.
Have a great
Okay.
day. I'm sorry for my delay.
No problem.
Okay. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye. Take care. Have a
I'll
good
see
day.
you. For you too. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.